Hi everyone. The city of Los Angeles, often referred to as the movie city of America, is the home of Hollywood. Over the years, the city has been destroyed of countless times in Hollywood flames, sometimes by massive earthquake, sometimes by devastating tsunami, or even by tornadoes and aliens. The city has endured a lot on the big screen, but now, in reality, fire has ravaged Los Angeles. Heartbreaking scenes can be seen throughout the city. Check out this video of a fire tornado spotted in an area called Palisades. And then there's this chilling video shot by a man who was trapped in his home as the flames reached him. He repeatedly said everything will be fine. In this video, you can see how his house was consumed by flames. Fortunately, the person recording the video was rescued by firefighters in time. But not everyone has been so lucky. So far, at least 24 people have lost their lives. The fire has spread across approximately 14,000 acres, and despite the fact that it has been over a week since the fire started, it's still raging as I record this. More than 12,000 buildings have been destroyed, including people's homes. Over 180,000 people have been displaced, and around 2 lakh others have been issued evacuating others. According to JP Morgan estimates, the city of Los Angeles is expected to face a staggering $50 billion in financial losses. The fire isn't just one isolated event. Multiple fires have broken out in various locations. On January 7th, the fire began in an area called Palisades. By the same night, Eden and Hearst also caught fire. By January 9th, Kenneth was engulfed in flames, along with several other areas such as Lydia, Archer, Woodley, and Sunset. By the morning of 12th, the fire in Lydia was fully extinguished, and the fire in Kenneth was about 90% under control. The fire in Hearst was 76% contained. By the Eden fire was only 15% contained, and the Palisades fire was only 11% controlled. What's most shocking about this event is that it's happening in January, a month when Los Angeles typically receives the most rainfall. So, how did we end up with such a devastating wildfire? There's a deeper issue behind this, and we will try to understand it in this video. From a geographical standpoint, the cause is attributed to a lack of rainfall in Southern California this year. This reduced the moisture levels in the region, which dried up the vegetation. The air was incredibly dry, and on top of that, powerful winds known as Santa Ana winds intensified the fire season. If you look at the map of the west coast of the US, you will see the Rocky Mountains, which cause low pressure areas along the California coast. These pressure differences create strong winds. When the winds descend from the mountains, they heat up, causing humidity levels to drop below 10%. This dry, hot air further dries out the forests, making them more susceptible to fires. Even a small spark can quickly escalate into a massive blaze. But the real question is, what caused these conditions? Low rainfall, dry vegetation, low humidity, and strong winds? Peter Kalmus, a climate scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, might have the answer. He used to live in Altadena, Los Angeles, but in 2022, he moved away after realizing that it was becoming unsafe. In an article for the New York Times, he discussed a dark truth involving some powerful individuals. We'll dive into it later in that video. But what he recognized with clarity was the undeniable impact of climate change. Take a look at this news article from January 2024. It declared 2023 the hottest year ever on Earth. According to the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service, global temperatures in 2023 was the highest since 1850, compared to pre-industrial times. The average temperature rose by 1.48 degrees Celsius. A representative from Copernicus said that climate records in 2023 fell like dominoes, and that this year's temperature were like higher than any period in the past 100,000 years. You might find this surprising, The climate scientists were not shocked. They had predicted it. The previous record holder was 2016 and 2023 surpassed it. This wasn't a freak event. It's part of the ongoing trend of climate change. By the end of 2023, greenhouse gas levels were at record highs, global temperatures were at record highs, sea levels were higher than ever, and sea ice in Antarctica reached record lows. At the end of 2023, the UN held its COP28 climate summit, which focused heavily on phasing out fossil fuels. Lisai Priya Kanbujam, a 12-year-old climate activist from India, even took the stage at the summit to demand that countries stop using fossil fuels. However, when the COP29 summit took place in November 2024, it became clear that the promise of transitioning away from fossil fuels was a false one. Data showed that rather than increasing, emissions from coal, oil, and gas had actually increased by 0.8% in 2024. This leads us to another alarming news article from this month, where it was reported that 2024 had broken 2023's records, becoming the hottest year ever. From June 2023 to August 2024, temperatures kept breaking new records for 15 consecutive months. NASA scientists labeled these an unprecedented heat streak. The United Nations had warned about the global warming threshold, keeping the temperature rise under 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels to avoid catastrophic consequences. However, a recent press release from the Copernicus Climate Change Service confirmed that this threshold was already surpassed last year. Compared to pre-industrial levels, the temperature has risen by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, you may be wondering why I'm talking about climate change in the context of the fires in Los Angeles. The answer is clear. Experts agree that climate change plays an undeniable role in the conditions that lead to this catastrophe. In October 2024, California experienced its second hottest month ever, with June and July being the hottest months in history. What does this mean? The heat in California during those months was unlike anything seen before. In Southern California, after July, there was no rainfall and everything dried out. Temperature in Southern California broke 5 heat records in one day, and emergency rooms were flooded with patients suffering from heat exhaustion. Thus, a few months later, the Santa winds began, further drying out the forests and sparking the fires. It's important to note that wildfires are not always caused by human actions. They can ignite naturally as well. Some ecosystems depend on periodic fires to maintain ecological balance. For example, certain conifer trees have thick bark to survive fires, and prairie grass stores most of its biomass underground. Some plants rely on heat to help their seeds germinate or for buds to turn into fruits. These infrequent wildfires help clear out that organic material, allowing new plants to grow. But with the rise of climate change, these natural cycles are being disrupted and the frequency and intensity of wildfires is increasing. This is why we need to understand the importance of managing wildfires, including controlled burns, which are carried out by experts in the field of fire ecology. This practice helps maintain the health of ecosystems while mitigating the risk of large-scale, uncontrollable fires. Now, I know there's a lot of information, but it's essential to understand how all these factors play into the tragedy we're witnessing in Los Angeles. And remember, while nature can sometimes spark fires, humans are also responsible for a significant portion of them, whether through negligence or other causes. Such as conifer trees, they have a thick bark or prairie grass, which stores most of its biomass underground. There are some plants which are dependent on the heat to help their seeds germinate underground or for their buds to turn into fruits. These infrequent wildfires can clear out that organic material. When there is a buildup of dead or decaying plants on the ground, the organisms within the soil may be unable to access the nutrients. This can prevent the outgrowth of new smaller plants. In such a situation, when the dead plants and animals burn in this wildlife, nutrients are released into the soil from the burned material. This way, the nutrients are released faster instead of decaying gradually. This is why, many times, humans often carry out prescribed burns or controlled burns. We intentionally orchestrate wildfire in a controlled way so that the ecology can benefit from it. This is a scientific field in itself, known as fire ecology. Now, let's get back to our topic. If we talk about the California region, wildfires have been common there. During summers, there are dry weather conditions with the wind blowing. So normally, from May to June to October, there can be a fire. The triggers behind the fire can be natural causes or man-made. Natural causes can be like a lightning strike. This is the most common cause of wildfires in terms of man-made causes. It could be a roadside ignition. A fire that spark in a vehicle, if a machinery hits a rock, it can cause sparks and later fire. Or sometimes the strong winds can lead to power lines swaying. Igniting spark. There can be other direct man-made causes as well. People go camping, light their campfire, but forget to put it out. The National Park Service of America state that 85% of the wildfires in their country are caused by human trigger. An audit in 2022 in California revealed that the electrical grids need a lot of improvement to reduce the risk of wildfire. The fire raging in Palisades now is said to have been triggered by the firecrackers used in New Year. The exact cause is still under investigation, but the firecrackers are considered a major suspect. But the problematic thing here is that, along with human triggers, there is a direct disruption caused by climate change. This is why natural fires over the last decade are not a part of any natural ecosystem. The timing of the wildfires in January, its intensity, and the damage it caused makes it clear that its root cause is climate change. Things will only get worse in the future. In 2021, a study was published in the PNS journal say that the days when there is a higher chance of fire igniting, the number of such fire weather days in California has risen from 6% to 90% over the last few decades. Such extreme wildfires that spread over more than 10,000 acres, the frequency in California has increased by 25% compared to pre-industrial times. This was stated by a study published in the science journal Nature. If we look at the California Fire Department's data about the most devastating wildfires, then in the list of the top 10, 8 wildfires are from 2017 to 2024. Over the last few years, this shows that only are many situations caused by human triggers, but overall, less rain, dry vegetation, and being more flammable, all of these are directly influenced by human-caused climate change. Whether the government understood this or not, but Peter Kalmus, a climate scientist whom I mentioned previously in this video, took this to be a clear sign that the situation is getting worse. Peter was living in Altadena, a small town in Los Angeles since 2008. He says that this place was in heaven at the time. There was a huge avocado tree in his backyard with his fruit. He used to make unlimited guacamole dips. There would be flocks of green parrots chirping about. Nearby in Pasadena, there were the perfect green lawns of California. There he would lie down with his kids, but the earth was getting hotter, and by 2012, it couldn't be ignored any longer. And so he decided to change his field. Earlier his work was related to gravitational waves. Now his work is related to climate science. He worked in NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He wanted to draw people's attention to climate change urgent threat. He volunteered with local climate groups. He gave climate talks at many parts of the city while riding a cycle. He wrote articles in newspapers and tweeted on Twitter. He was also the co-founder of a non-profit climate app and climate media group. But he was helpless against the agenda of a few billionaires. In September 2020, during an intense heat wave, Peter felt heat exhaustion for the first time. The next day, a fierce fire broke out a few miles away. This was named Bobcat Fire. With his family, he was surrounded by clouds of smoke over the next few weeks. There was a burning sensation in their lungs and a constant tingling in their fingers. After the day, he suspected that his neighborhood could also be a victim of a fierce wildfire someday. That day, he decided that they can't stay there any longer. They had to leave that place. In 2022, his wife got a job in North Carolina and the family moved there. He says that though he knew that there'd be a fire someday, but he never imagined that it would be so fierce. In the news, he saw the pet hospital he used to visit for his dog was burned. The church where he used to take his boys for recitals was burned. The coffee shop where he used to meet his friends and climate activists got burned. Nothing was left of the hardware store or the bunny museum near where he lived. His old neighbor messaged him to say that the house he used to live in was burned to the ground. This brought Peter to tears. Peter says that the apocalypse is already here. If not for all, then for those who have lost something in climate disasters, no place is entirely safe. There was deadly fires in Hawaii in 2023, the 2021 heat dome in the Pacific Northwest, the Hurricane Helene in North Carolina last year. Apart from America, there have been wildfires in Australia, oases are disappearing in Morocco, there are floods in Dubai, and even in India, summers are becoming hotter and more unbearable. Peter says that until we are enraged at this, nothing will change, and you will be enraged when you will find out the truth about who is suffering and who is benefiting from it. Who caused this? Look at his report from last year. Since 2016, of the total greenhouse gas emissions globally, 80% of it is emitted by only 57 companies. Only 57 companies are responsible for most of the climate change in the world. Which companies are these? These are multi-billion-dollar multinational companies that sell oil, gas, and coal. America's ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, Chevron, Total Energies, these are the private companies. But there are some government companies on this list too. At the top is China's state-owned coal company, Saudi Arabia's Saudi Aramco, Russia's Gazprom, Iran's national Iranian oil, India's Coal India, Mexico's Pemex. And the amazing part is that these private companies in America knew 50 years ago that their operations would cause irreversible climate change on Earth. Despite knowing this, the CEOs of this company, their lobbyists, their lawyers, spread disinformation and lies to hamper the growth of renewable energy. They use their money to pay politicians all over the world. I'm not saying this. This is what Peter claims. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but there is solid evidence backing this claim. Last year, climate investigator Rebecca John uncovered some old documents. Some of these documents were in the U.S. National Archive, some in the University of California, and some of them were newspaper printed in Los Angeles in the 1950s. These documents revealed that the fossil fuel industry, the Air Pollution Foundation, a famous climate scientist, Charles Skilling, his early research was funded by them. Charles Skilling worked in a laboratory in Hawaii and made a setup to constantly measure global carbon dioxide. His Skilling's curve shows the progressive buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Back then, Los Angeles had a problem with smoke. Research effort into it was funded by the fossil fuel industry. Apart from the fossil fuel industry, a coalition of oil and car manufacturers gave funds to Charles Skilling for research. These documents show that the research done back then had already revealed that large-scale carbon dioxide emissions would have planetary implications. Things that we study in our school textbooks that emissions are caused by burning fossil fuels. Greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide trap heat and it causes global warming. The industry had known about this danger since 1954. They continued the exploitation of fossil fuels to make more and more money. The managers of these companies already knew that the danger they were pushing the world into. I want to ask you, shouldn't they be arrested and charged with genocide? A 1959 memo shows that America's leading oil and gas lobbying body, American Petroleum Institute and Western Oil and Gas Association were funding the air population. I want to ask you, shouldn't they be arrested and charged with genocide? A 1959 memo shows that America's leading oil and gas lobbying body, American Petroleum Institute and Western Oil and Gas Association were funding the Air Pollution Foundation at that time. Right in 1955, a policy statement of the Air Pollution Foundation stated that for California or any other urban area, air pollution is the most serious issue. There is no proof of Charles killing suppressing his research for money, but there is undeniable proof that for decades, this industry continued to publicly deny climate science. They chose the path of lies and fraud. Not only that, they also funded to delay all action on the climate crisis. There was a clear business model here. A 2016 investigation revealed that ExxonMobil and other companies had patented the technology of electric cars and low-emissions vehicles back in 1963. The patent records show that they were searching for a technology that was supposed to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions. This shows that they knew that CO2 emissions were a threat to the world, but at the same time, they were lobbying to prevent government funding for such research. For years, they kept saying that there's no such thing as climate change, that things are not getting worse because of human. It was only in 2008 that they stopped denying climate change. Finally, they accepted that it's human-caused climate change. Had these companies taken appropriate action 50 years earlier, the present situation would not have occurred. In 2021, during a historic hearing of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability Fossil Fuel, executive admitted that climate crisis is an urgent threat. But a decade of false narrative, they refuse to take any responsibility for it. In his article in The Guardian, Peter Kalmus writes that if we want to protect ourselves from the climate crisis, we have to protect ourselves from the billionaire class. We already have the option of solar energy, but these billionaires are blocking this transition as well. They cite the example of the Mountain Valley Pipeline Project, a pipeline project in America which would not be the right thing to do from the perspective of climate change. Activists had protested to get it shut down, but a company paid Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer $30,000 and this project was revived. This model of paying influenced government policies work shamelessly and quite dangerously in America. There was a Democrat Party, their other main party, the Republican Party, to have Donald Trump and other Republican candidates win. Elon Musk spent $277 million. It's only 0.06% of his wealth. But it was enough to reverse the election. While taking the channel The Democracy Now!, Peter said that we need to stop this stupid war and deal with this emergency that our planet is becoming less inhabitable. Our planet is in the process of becoming less and less habitable. In terms of politicians, he called out the two recent US presidents from the Democratic Party, President Biden and President Obama. Both were proud of the fact that they expanded the use of fossil fuels. On the other hand, now that Donald Trump, a Republican, is in the office, he gaslights people and says that it is all a hoax. Both the Democratic presidents, President Obama and President Biden, they were very proud to expand fossil fuel. We have a Republican president coming into office who says this is a hoax, who's gaslighting the people who are following him. Peter asks, When will Trump supporters open their eyes and see that the planet is becoming inhabitable? When will we stop listening to this person who calls climate change a hoax? Peter suggests that we have to adopt the path of civil disobedience all over the world. First, he says that we need to halt the social license of these billionaires. We have to take away the power they will. Only when we do this will we be able to find the solutions to problems like climate crisis and healthcare crisis and make the world a better place. If you are watching this video from America, I would ask you to join Peter Kalmus and other climate activist movement. We need to ensure that our lifestyle is sustainable. That is important too. But the biggest problem here includes these billionaires at the top and these big companies on a personal level. The number of trees we plant barely matters. The cleanliness around us barely matters because these people at the top of the hierarchy can pay the politicians to pass such laws which would destroy our environment. I would like to show you some of the news headlines from last year for the Kanwar Yatra in Uttar Pradesh, UP. The government planned to chop down 1,12,000 trees for the Great Nicobar project. On this island Nicobar, up to 10 million trees can be cut. According to these environmentalists, the previous estimate was 8,50,000 trees. In August 2024, in Hasdeo, Chhattisgarh, 2,50,000 trees were supposed to be cut for coal mining. In September 2024, in Rajasthan's conservation reserve, the Rajasthan government permitted 1 lakh trees to be cut for a power project. That's why it is crucial for this lobbying model to come to an end. If you want to prevent future destruction, if you live in the states near in these areas, voice your objection and protest. The Madhya Pradesh government was about to cut more than 27,000 trees in Bhopal to build VVIP housing for MLAs. But then people protest. And look at this news from 17 June 2024. The government has cancelled this plan. So it does make a difference wherever you are, however you are. You should try as much as you can. I hope that this video was informative as always. Thanks very much.